3.
Oh,
Hey,
JP.
how you doing, man?
Good. You're a long ways from home.
Yes, sir. I had to come down and see you, man. This is hot. Look at this.
Where'd you come in from?
Nova Scotia.
Where's that? Is
Go-
that
go
do
to-
you fly? Do you drive? How do you do that?
Go to Maine and jump in at the end.
Just follow the geese.
Follow the geese.
1, 2, 3. I'm missing 2 frets, man. Don't talk to me. I don't know what's going on.
So, besides coming down to see me, which makes perfect
Sure,
sense,
than what you were planning all year.
what else has been going on with you? New projects, new things?
New
I know there's
lessons.
Well, I was just trying to make you feel good earlier.
like,
I would have actually made a special trip down here, and I would have. You know that. But I am in the middle of sort of a month-long national tour.
you are.
So we started out the first of the month playing Calgary, Edmonton Folk Festival.
That's a good
Flew
one.
home for a couple of days and did YouTube things. And then I drove to Philadelphia, to the Philadelphia Folk Festival, and then here, then the Fretboard Summit.
Yeah.
Then I go back to Cape Breton and play the last show in Cape Breton Island.
Which is also beautiful up there.
It is. And then I'm off for a few weeks, and then I'm heading to Texas,
Texas.
the Bauer Sox International Guitar Festival.
Who does your routing? You.
Me,
Some zigzags going on there.
That's what I was wondering. I figured it had to be.
Honda Canada.
Get some frequent flyer
I'm
miles.
gonna
with
go.
driving.
I'm gonna go all the way to the northwest corner, as far as I can go, and then
Yeah.
and I'm gonna go home, and then I'm gonna go to Texas.
Yeah, I got a week off.
I don't know if you know this, but we're closer to Texas here
Yeah.
than your house.
Yeah, I know.
There's a festival in between the two, though.
I don't know. I'll probably stop in Nashville and play a date in Nashville.
That'll work too. Cool.
But Chicago's gonna be fun. We're gonna have blast
yeah.
up there. And I missed out last year. You guys had a ball there, and I'm like, I gotta get in on that.
It was amazing, wasn't it?
Yeah, I had a good time.
God,
Jeremy's gonna ruin
laughed.
it this time, but
Yeah, I'm a stick in the mud.
he's not very much fun.
It's like
We should find a man to play. Oh, he's standing right there. Sorry, I didn't see you there.
I understand Canadian, by the way. I speak Canadian.
Oh God, I'm in trouble.
You can't have secret conversations with him.
Oh God. Well, yeah, that's true. We can make fun of him.
Yeah.
For a change.
There you go.
Hey,
Hey,
Hey, it's a secret handshake.
so how do you get across the border?
I fool him every time. Keep on fooling him.
Hats on sideways.
Yeah. Just pull up there, full of moose hair, smell the maple syrup. Let me in every time.
It works.
full of moose hair, by the way.
Oh, yeah, bro.
That's not a picture I'm trying to.
Oh yeah. They shed a lot when you pet them.
I've never been tempted to pet a moose, but I guess next time I'm up there, I'll extend my hand.
If you ever get a chance, take it. It's once in a lifetime.
Yes. You only do it once, I'm sure.
That's right.
I'm having fun already.
All right.
So that's good. You got the world tour of North America going on
Yeah.
right now. And then how does your winters look? Do you travel much during the winter? Or is it
Oh,
mostly
yeah.
lesson content?
No, it's more. A lot of our theater series are subsidized by the government, and they do it for winter.
Yeah.
So November, December, there's a couple of big projects I'm working on this year. I'm re-releasing my biggest album in October. It's like a 30th anniversary of Another Morning. So that's being re-released, and we're playing the entire album with full band for the first time ever in order at the Celtic Colors Festival in the arena in front of
Wow.
10,000 people. And so that's I'm trying to get that ready to go. I got a new album on the almost finished called 50 Years of Guitar, which is a double vinyl, possibly double CD set. I'm not sure how it's going to work, but there's 35 sides on it because they're short instrumentals, right?
Yeah.
That's happening, and then November, Dave Gunning and I'll start our Christmas tour. That lasts 4 weeks, right up to Christmas.
So he's like super busy in the winter.
Yeah.
Which when we toured up there a few times, we used to do Tony DeBoer's bluegrass tour, and it was always a winter thing, and
Yeah.
it was questionable whether we would make the next show or not because the snowstorms would sneak out of nowhere, and
He's not scared.
No.
they got the chains they put on the tires.
Yeah. So then, in between Christmas and New Year's, we play the Station Inn again. In Dave, go down there for 2 nights, I think. And then in January, I'll probably take a little bit of time off and work on the school and work on YouTube. And
Yeah.
so it's just
That's your new project, right? The school.
yeah. Well, the school's been up since 2013, but we only just reclaimed it from the platform it was on and took all the parts back and built a brand new platform. My buddy Stephen Baker in Sweden, he's like an IT god. He's one one of the people that invented open source coding.
Cool.
When he was 18.
Can he fix our internet?
Yes, he could. Yeah, and he could build you a whole new internet company. And yeah, so he's handling the construction and administration. And I'm, me and Ginger are filming content. And there's a lot of content there now. There's probably 100 videos, 100 lectures, right? And all of the instructions filmed from point of view, 3 ways. So, yeah, it's pretty cool.
That is very cool. It's good to have you going back and, like I said, reclaiming that and owning that space again so that
Yeah.
you can get more of the guitar out to everyone.
What has been some of your history as a teacher? Because you seem to be naturally inclined towards teaching. Have you always taught since you learned the guitar and mandolin and banjo and fiddle?
Well, see, I learned by myself. That was the main thing for me. I learned in isolation. I didn't have any teachers, and all I had was my record player. So I had to sort of figure things out on my own. And when I entered my teens and started like playing full time for a living, and I couldn't make a living. Who can at that age when you're just doing sideman work and whatever? And that was when I was down here, like touring with bluegrass bands, still only making $75 a week.
Sure.
So I taught, and I immediately, for some reason, decided to teach the way I learned. So I was like, okay, well, I got to here, so I had to figure, how did I get here? Well, I learned that first.
Yeah.
And that thing might look way backwards, that you shouldn't know that first. But that's how I started teaching, and my students just went, phew.
Yeah.
So when we started this master music method, that's what I did. I went back into my childhood when I was 5 and tried to remember all the things in order. And they're really weird order.
They're not like, here's recognize all the notes, here's your
Exactly,
scales, here's your fundamentals. It's just
none of
jump
that.
in the deep
It
end.
was just like jumped in the deep end and found this one thing that led to the next thing. And 2 or 3 more things, and then I'd have to go back and find
now this one made more sense.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and find the theoretical content between two steps, right?
Yeah.
And that's how I did it.
Cool.
And that's how the school works. In order of how I did it.
Well, that's
People love it.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
professional guys go on there and go, I just wanted to find the right hand for Molly May.
Yeah.
And then they say, well, and then I went and looked at your right and left hand technique lecture. I figured there's stuff in there I never heard of.
Yeah.
And I said, I only knew that because I worshiped Chet and Doc. So that's how I knew those things. I found them out so early that I didn't even know what they were. It was just the only way I could do to copy them.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
And
it's pretty
we were talking
pretty weird.
earlier about Monroe, and I think that's a lot of those guys that really innovated the music kind of had that same route. They didn't go through the fundamentals and learn all the theory behind things. They just played what they heard, and then that led to one more thing, and then they figured out some technique with that, and then that led to another. So it's somewhat organic.
It was all feel.
Yeah.
They were all of them were trying to express something that was in their head and more along in their heart. And they played out of their hearts. They never thought about, if they made a mistake trying to command an idea, they didn't stop and go back and fix it. They'd fix it in their head, and the next time they did it right.
Yeah.
So that doesn't happen anymore. People, when they're learning, they try to be perfect too quickly and way too quickly. And that's one of the things I get on people about all the time is playing at speed when you're not ready to.
Yeah, it's a hard one.
Never do that. And that's what frustrates people. They quit playing.
Yeah.
Because they can't do
They hear the other guy do it, and they're like, I should be able to do that.
Yeah, I know the notes, and I know all the thing. Why can't I do this at 120?
Yeah.
Because you're not supposed to.
Yeah.
Go back to 80 until you play it clean, then go to 82.
That's right.
And they want to make this massive speed jump. They don't understand that if they do it that slow way for just the first half dozen tunes, the
Speed
progression
comes.
gets easier. They don't start at 80 anymore. They can play it clean at 90, and so on until you can play at any speed you want. Right?
Sure. Absolutely. So where was the maritime aspect to your playing? How did that come? Obviously, that's part of your lineage and stuff, but what was the trajectory of your personal playing? Was it more of that Maritimes folk music? into the bluegrass stuff, into how did
Chet.
that all kind of go for you?
Well, the first thing I ever heard in my life was Cape Breton fiddle music. My father was a tremendous fiddler, and he used to hang out with the guys who are today are legends, right? Like Winston Fitzgerald and Angus Chisholm and these Jerry Holland hadn't come along then, but he was the next guy in line in the monarchy, right? But I grew up listening to Winston, and he was the greatest fiddler that we ever knew, and its tunes were incredibly difficult, all kinds of tunes in the flats, and just crazy stuff like that. And my father played all of this, and I wanted to play with my dad. I was like 6, so I'd already been playing a year, so I learned to play all the backup that Winston's backup player did on the tapes, right? And my father would put the tape in, put the earplug in, which would cut off the speaker. He could only hear it. And he played the tune. Winston was playing along with Winston, but I was playing along with Dad.
Yeah.
So that's how I learned to play complex chord structure, bar chord, like all that stuff, right? And then my father brought me home an electric guitar one year when I was probably 7, which I didn't play. It just made me want to play the flat top worse. And even though, and then he bought me a Chet Atkins record, and that's what changed everything. So by the time I was 12, I was already playing at an adult level. I memorized a dozen Chet records.
Sure.
And then when my father passed when I was 8, and we stayed in Ontario for the first few years and then went back home to Nova Scotia. And when we did, we all moved into the same house, and I inherited my 2 older brothers' record collections. They came with them, right? In the record collection was a ton of Doc Watson, who I knew about him, but I never had a chance to like sit down by myself with headphones.
Sure.
And the first day was the live concert in New York, the University of New York City, and he played Billy in the Low Ground. And I learned it that day. I just wore the record out, right? And I was not a flat picker. I was a fingerstyle player. I could play rhythm and stuff with a flat pick, but then that's how it started. After that, it just ping-ponged back between, that led me into bluegrass. The first bluegrass I ever heard in my life was the Osbournes.
Good
I
place
had
to
their
start.
CMH records, they're all sitting in there in the white polyester
Yep.
suits, that one. That was the album I had. And it just exploded. People started bringing me records because they knew I learned by ear. So by the time I was 14, I was playing banjo, mandolin, fiddle, as well as guitar. And then just went on from there. Went heavy into bluegrass because that's where all the killer players were, right? And ended up down here, of course, when I was 16. Stayed here for 10 years and got to play with all my heroes. And made my living as a mandolin player mostly. Very little guitar.
Yeah.
I didn't really play much guitar for money until I left here and went home and started singing my own songs. And then
That's when you decided what you're going to be as you.
yeah, I just do everything I love. I don't do just one thing. I couldn't. I'd be bored as hell doing that. So
Very, very cool.
sorry for the long bio.
No, that's exactly what we need.
Yeah.
It's fun to talk about the backgrounds of players, where they come from, how they get there, and
There's a lot of threads that go amongst musicians that they go through similar things, but there's also a lot of unique stories about kind of what
Yeah.
shaped their musical journey.
The thing I find is it's always some little weird thing that changes people's musical journey. For me, it was a couple of things maybe. It was probably one thing. Like the idea of your father bringing you home a guitar and a Chet Atkins album, that's commonplace. It happened a million times. Chet changed everything, right?
sure.
But getting stuck in an old haunted house in the middle of the woods is where we were, with me and my mother and my 2 older brothers, and this massive pile of LPs that was now unguarded, because I wasn't allowed near that stuff when I was a kid, right?
Yeah.
But don't touch my records, right? They were all doing whatever. I'd be like flipping through, found these Doc records, and that's it. That one day, I can look back and say, that's where my career started. Because my first album came out 3 years later, and it was all flat pick guitar. There wasn't one fingerstyle thing on it. So,
That really changed your approach.
yeah.
That is, it's
Yeah.
also fun to talk. I know I've talked to, and not just Canadian players, but there's this isolation that kind of happens especially for bluegrass stuff. I talked to other people, players from Europe, and that when they're trying to, and they just have to immerse themselves in every recording that they can possibly get because there's nothing else around them.
Right.
And I know that was one thing that I've talked to a lot of guitar players, mandolin players, banjo players, whatever it happens to be, and they're just like, you had such an advantage because it was all around you. And then there's some of that to truth, but even to us, we're from Colorado. I don't know if you know that's not the hotbed of bluegrass either,
No.
but it is kind of funny how that all of us, as starting in our careers, once you get into that zone, you're immersed in it, and you find everything that you can. Remember finding CD and album collections and just going through them and trying to do it. And I think even more so for folks like you who were even more isolated from players. It becomes, grab everything that you can possibly find because you don't know when you're going to find it next time,
I'll tell you how isolated I was. I still remember how I got discovered. So there was a major regional television show out of Halifax called Up Home Tonight, and it was hosted by a bluegrass band, the Ladies' Choice Bluegrass Band. And they're legends. Matter of fact, they're being honored this year at the Celtic Connections, Celtic Colors Festival. So it was an audition process, right? And they went from town to town all over the 4 provinces trying to find new talent. It was on for 8 years, that show, and it was on every week, so it was quite involved how they went about not only finding talent, but equal representation of all the 4 provinces, which is really important to the Maritimers. Like, if you pay too much attention to one guy, the other fellow's like, so you really had to be careful.
That happens here too.
Yeah, so there was an audition in my little town, and I had no clue about nothing. So I put together, I of course watched the show religiously, so I put together a 3.5 minute medley of Doc Watson stuff, and I recorded a background track on a cassette player. And I walked in with the guitar, and I was poor. We had nothing. Matter of fact, the most expensive thing in the house was my tape deck of my father's after he left me after he died. And it was Super Scope, it was called. It had a speed control on it, which came in real handy later on, right? I walk in, and they're looking at me, the host, Gordon Stobie, the host, and the producer, Barry Bramhill, and they're just sitting at the other side of the table. They don't know what's going on. I didn't even look at them. I was terrified, right? Put the thing, and Gordon told me later, he's like, oh God, he's coming in with a tape deck. Oh, jeez. This is going to be bad. Plugged it in, tuned the guitar, hit play, and ripped through this 3-minute thing. Doc Watson at 140 beats, like just plugged it and ran out of the room. Never even told them my name.
Don't speak to me.
Oh, just ran out, and I was it was in a big hotel, and I was all the way downstairs in the lobby before they realized they were just like, who was that kid? And they jump up and they go to the balcony and they're leaning over the balcony into the light. Hey, you. And I turned around and said, you're on the show. What's your name? And that's how I got discovered.
Awesome.
Well, good for you.
And I did that because I had no clue that there was anyone that could back me up. I'd never seen anybody play guitar like that, like Merle or any kind of bluegrass rhythm at all or anything, right? So I was shocked when I got into the studio and found out that not only was the guitar player in the band a monster, but the banjo player was a guitar monster as well. And so that was my first foray into even discovering that there were other musicians around within 60 miles of my house.
Yeah.
Right? I had no idea. So that's pretty wild. And a lot of people come up like that.
So basically the secret is isolate yourself in a haunted mansion.
Yes.
And then
Steve Brothers record player collection.
Steal collection from
Yes.
somebody.
Enter one of the You Got Talent TV shows.
Yeah.
And it's all, and then you're
They're sailing.
They're sailing.
Pick out a pink flamingo shirt and you're
Yes,
ready to
yes.
go.
Yeah. Exactly.
that was probably the final step. Did you have that throughout your career? That's the question.
Oh, well, yes.
That's some
It's
wild
quite old. I repair it. I
repair it daily.
I repair it biannually.
shirts. Those aren't parrots, those are flamingos.
They're flamingos, yeah.
Yeah. Did I say parrots?
Repair it.
repair it.
Never mind. All right, that's
You
the
meant
end.
re-flamingo.
All right, done.
Can I play some flamingo guitar in here?
Flamingo.
We should go play now.
All right. Oh, yeah.
One note.